Hello guys, before we get started, I just wanted to plug this app that I've told you guys before, UGPhone. It's a cloud phone app that you can get for the iOS, the Android, or even the PC, like me. And it allows you to pretty much farm 24/7 without degrading your device. And I personally think that it's an extremely useful app because I use it and it has enabled me to do other things with my PC while I'm farming on CROWS. And yes, many of you asked before if you would get banned from using the cloud phone apps to launch the game, and the answer to that is no. I've used this app before, and I've been using it for quite a while now. And as you can see, my account looks perfectly fine. It looks perfectly fine. So you don't need to worry about that. This app is working as intended. I think it looks great, and I hope that you guys would find success in using it as well, because I think that this app is quite useful. Right, so the only thing that I could say is get your UGPhone app while I can still give you a big PP discount. My code won't last too much longer after all. The code and link will be in the description down below if you're looking for it. Anywho, that's it for the plug. Let's get on with the video. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the Cleric. Whew! The Cleric is honestly one of those classes I'm extremely skeptical of playing as my first class, and rightfully so. As I tend to play alone for the most part, the sheer lack of damage would only dwindle any hopes of solo grinding. However, the class turns out to actually have a lot of extremely useful abilities that could have an extremely high impact in a fight. One I have underestimated for a very long time. I'm actually sure that the Cleric won the poll as the class you wanted me to review next, because so many of you are wondering the same thing as I did. So, let's make this episode slightly special by looking deep into what the class's skills are first. Then, afterwards, we can proceed with the pros and cons that I saw after testing it on my buddy's account. Let's get down to it. The first skill would be Discharge. This simply does damage and nothing else. The second one would be the same, being Lightning Strike. The third one's gonna be Holy Lightning, which is also a damage type, but if I were you, I would not take this as my first blue skill, as there's a lot more that could be actually useful, but I'll explain that in a bit. Now, the third spell, or the fourth spell, of this class would be Gracious Light, and this is arguably one of the most important skill on the early game, as it gives you 4 crit, 4 dual damage, 6 PvE bonus damage, and also 5 crit damage. This is very powerful, because in total, this gives you an invisible 1500 CP. So this gives you pretty much a passive CP that you cannot really see on your class. This enables you to deal some bits of damage, given that your class stat growth offensively is kinda bad. So please get the skill as soon as possible and max it out so that you get the highest possible level, being these. The next skill will be called Brilliance. The character increases the stats of itself and party members for 5 minutes. And yes, this do apply on everyone. Just like this one. So this will be applied to everyone in your party. Same as this one. This one, however, is slightly more useful, as this increases accuracy. As you can see, accuracy is one of the most important things in the game, because it pretty much just means if you can actually hit an opponent or not. Because if you don't have this, or you don't have enough accuracy, it will determine that you cannot actually hit a monster or an opponent. The MP regen is also very useful as it allows you to cast more spells. The next skill will be called Recover. The character regenerates 1500 health. So this is going to be done pretty much slowly. It's not an instant, but it does heal quite a good chunk. 1500 HP is pretty good early game. The next one is called Heal. So this one is actually a lot more useful early on because it does have a much lower cooldown, being 3 seconds. This one regenerates 400 health for you and for one more party member. This one doesn't. So when you cast Heal on one of your allies, you actually get healed too. So that's very useful. However, it's not very cost effective as the MP cost is quite high. The next skill is called Rescue, and this is actually a pretty funny skill as this summons one party member to you. And yes, this cannot be stopped. So actually I found out something very stupid once. This was a story that my friend told me about. So my friend was in Battlefront. One day my friends were in Battlefront, and what happened was he was being attacked by some people. And so he called one of his teammates that were not there to go to him. And because there was only one guy and there was like 10 other opponents in Battlefront, well, I guess you could say that this cleric killed his own teammate by summoning him to a location that's not exactly the most friendly. So that's pretty bad. And try not to do that because that will tilt some people. The next one is going to be called Shiny Heal. The character regenerates 1500 HP for itself or another party member. So it's actually quite useful. Alright? It's very useful. For heal, I actually don't know why, but it says HP for self or another party member. But when I cast this, I feel like I'm also getting the heal itself. I might have to do some further testing for this one, because when I was using it on my teammate, I actually got heal for myself as well. So this could be a wrong translation from the Korean version or something else I entirely have no idea about. But pretty much, you could probably say that this makes a lot more sense, given that the character regenerates 1500 HP for itself or another party member, would have absolutely no difference with Recover if it's pretty much the same. Also, the cost is only 38 for the Recover and 154 for Shiny Heal. If they heal for the same amount for one target, then there will be no difference in Recover and Shiny Heal. So this is probably a wrong translation, and you'll probably get it too if you give it to your party member. The next one's called Bliss, and this is one of the most useful skill that this class have. I would probably say this is the single best skill of this class. It has damage tolerance for 30 seconds. It's a joke. This actually lasts for 40 seconds. Alright? So this is a very powerful buff. Damage tolerance basically means damage reduction, in a way that your allies take less damage. 30% is a hefty amount. This is nearly half of what damage your teammates or you should be taking. And this is also the same as the previous one, in which it actually affects you as well. The character decreases the incoming damage of itself or another party member for 40 seconds, but in my testing, this is also applied on myself. So I don't understand the translation errors. The next one is going to be called Baptism. The character increases the stats of itself and a party member for 5 minutes. Now this is insane. 13 basic damage. It's a ton of damage, guys. It's a lot. Plus, this max rate 5% is actually going to be a lot more useful than you think. Because max rate is basically this. When you go to your when you get to your class, you'll see that you have weapon damage, basic damage, and melee damage. So the damage that you're dealing is actually basic damage plus melee damage, which will be your overall damage, but it doesn't actually calculate your weapon damage, and you will do from 1 to 56 by random. Max, meaning that you will deal 56 more often than 1. So by having max means that you will be able to deal more damage overall, because your weapon damage is usually very high compared to your basic damage or your melee damage. So just by having that 5% increase in the ability to proc the 56 damage here, or your maximum damage, is going to make your damage overall a lot better. Now, let's just go back to the class and see what else we missed. Right, this is just baptism. Very, very good skill. The next one is going to be the legendary skill. This is called Descent. The character regenerates 30% of HP and 30% of MP for itself or another party member, and increases its stats for itself or another party member for 20 seconds. Debuff resistance basically means that you're going to take less likely the amount of time that you will get stunned or binded or silenced or all that. So this is actually very useful. Status effect res is also very strong. Debuffs is more like, say, you got your stats reduced. That's debuffs. Status effects are like binds, stuns, and all that. So a 30% chance, well, not 30% chance, it's the 30% reduction to those effects could actually be very useful. However, this is a very difficult skill to get, so I don't really bank on getting it in the first place. This is, however, a pretty good skill, but this is more what I'm actually looking at. Regenerates 30% of health and 30% of MP. This is a game changer. Imagine putting this on your strongest character or your strongest team. Your strongest teammate might be this one guy that's a huge whale. You give this to him, that guy will never die. He will legit never die. And that's insane. Next will be Rejuvenation Spell. The character increases its stats, but its damage afflicted on targets decrease. This is a very defensive skill in which you actually heal more, but dealt damage reduction rate 40%. So you will actually deal less damage. So, well, I mean, it doesn't actually pose too much of a problem as this class have no damage in the first place. So it's not a huge problem, I would say. It's not that big of a deal, because you're probably dealing like almost no damage anyways. Next is going to be one of the basic skills of the Witch, and it's going to be the Physical Reinforcement, just 4 defense. Awareness being MP regen 15. These are just basic skills. 4 defense isn't much at all. Precision is just accuracy, which every class have. Next one is going to be Offset. This is just basic, one of the basic skills, passives that every class have as well. Melee evasion, melee damage reduction, that's about it. With magic evasion, magic damage reduction, that's it. The next one is going to be called Flow Detection. Now this one is pretty special. Bonus damage against normal types by 10. Bonus damage against normal types means it hits mobs. So when you hit mobs, you deal 10 points of more damage. Next is going to be Divine Authority. Now, the character increases stats, healing power regen, 30. This is a pretty good passive, because it increases your healing power regen, but that's about it. There's nothing interesting about it at all. Now, the next ones will be very powerful stuff. Upon casting a skill, the character increases its stats with a certain chance for 20 seconds. Cooldown reduction rate. Cooldown reduction, guys. For fuck's sake, that is insane. Now, I actually don't know what this chance is. Okay, legit, I don't know this. And I don't think anyone would ever find out. Because the game has a terrible sort of coding in which they don't even tell you anything. They don't tell you any numbers. So, we don't know what the chance is. We really don't. But cooldown reduction in every game is fucking broken. So that's that. Next is going to be called Reincarnation, and this is pretty much regenerates 20 MP with a certain chance. Also, we don't know what the chance is, but 20 MP to be regened at 1 second cooldown. If we know what the chance is, then we could probably tell how good or how bad the skill is, but since we don't know what the chance is, we can't ever really tell. Next is going to be called Glorification. When hit, the character will regenerate 60 health with a certain chance. Also, the same problem. But 60 health when hit is a pretty good passive to have, so that when you actually farm, you probably need no potions at all. Given this, and also your heal skills, this could be very useful. Finally, for the last skill, upon a successful hit, the character inflicts bonus damage with a certain chance, which also we don't know what chance is. So pretty much this class have a lot of RNG base around it, which makes it kinda weird and kinda difficult to sort of gauge. But overall, those are the skills. Now, let's talk about some pros and cons of the class itself. Alright? Pros. You don't only heal your allies and yourself, but also empower them by making them tougher to take down in the form of damage reduction. And they also hit much harder in the form of damage amplification, alongside additional stat buffs. The class is not exactly tanky due to its extremely low defense and stat growth. You see here, 15 vitality is very low. It's even lower than the mage, it's even lower than the daggers, it's even lower than the bows. And we don't need to mention the rest, because the melees are probably gonna have, ooh, this is more than double. And yeah, obviously, this has one of the worst vitality growth in the game. However, because you gain buffs by default when you use it on your teammates, the class itself can be quite tanky, as you have a lot of heals that you can use on yourself. Due to having innate heals, you're not going to be wasting too much potions when you're grinding, making gold spent on potions a lot less compared to other classes. This is a good thing for your economy, as, believe it or not, we spend from 50k to 300k gold for potions alone a week. Well, it kind of depends on your class and your CP, but on the overall free-to-play market, we would spend from 50 to 300,000 gold on just potions alone each week. By having this number reduced a lot less, is a very good economical advantage for the clerics. Next, let's talk about the cons of this class. And boy, there is a lot. The class is extremely squishy when not buffed. You have the single lowest vitality growth in the game, making you technically the softest class in the game. The lowest defense growth in the game, and also the lowest MP regen growth amongst the magic type classes. Not to mention, your skill kit is mostly reliant on mana you do not have the ability to regen enough of on the early game. Moreover, the class lacks any form of disable. As you can see, this class have no disables at all. It's got no slows, no binds, no stuns, no silence, no nothing. It's got absolutely no disables in the game. So, making it offensively have near to no impact in making progress during a fight. To add further, your class has the single lowest damage output. As you can see here, this class has the lowest damage output in the game. Yes, even lower than the Guardian class. Even lower. This makes farming or dishing out damage extremely inefficient. Also, with absolutely no growth in damage modifiers like crit or dual damage, well, investing on them would yield worse payoffs compared to every other class. And finally, due to the fact that your class has access to extremely terrible skills on the early game, before you get at least 2 blue tiers. You do need to get at least 2 blues to make this class even work in the first place, because the rest are not really that great. Yeah? The early game of this class is undoubtedly the worst out of any class in the whole game. The most terrible part of all this is unfortunately the fact that with all these issues combined, like the stats and the terrible skills early game, well, you'd have a very hard time progressing with the main quest, as the checkpoint bosses that you see here, these must all be done solo. Now, let's talk a little bit about my final thoughts of the class itself. The class is an extremely powerful addition to any party or team, as its presence alone not only adds a ton of survivability and longevity on any team, it's also capable of making a team deal more damage in the long run, because they get buffs that increase their damage, and because you keep on healing them, they don't really die. It is, without a doubt, one of the most important classes in the game. However, its stats and, well, its skills growth is extremely poor, making it an extremely easy to kill, if focused. The build as well is pretty hard to change, as investing in damage modifiers would be inefficient due to the lack of actual growth for them by default. All in all, those are what I found out about the Cleric class. If you're a defensively team-oriented player that don't mind suffering, then perhaps this is the class for you. I hope that you learned something new from this video, and tell me on the comment section down below what class is your favorite. With that being said, this is your Uncle BigFish, and that's it from me. Have a nice day, and I'll see you guys again on the next one. Bye.